Everybody, welcome back to the Insiders Lounge podcast. Today we have another special episode and another special guest, Chris. Thank you for joining me. Before we get fully into things here, I want to kind of start off with a bit of a hook, I guess you could say. So you were on the pitch coaching kids at 16 years old at Chelsea Football Club, and now today, I think if we look through your resume, through your LinkedIn, whatever that might be, we've got Oxford United on there. We've got Arsenal, Chelsea, all projects that you've been a part of, but not anything to do with on the pitch, everything off the pitch, more on the branding side of things. Can you talk us through that journey and give us a quick introduction? I think, first of all, from my side, I want to say thank you for coming on. And then if you want to just give us those key jumps and moments from childhood all the way to where you are now, some of the key moments that people need to understand in order for them to really comprehend your story and what you've been through.
Of course, yeah. I mean, I'm tempted to give you my life story here. We could write an autobiography. But no, firstly, thank you for having me, Chad. I'm really excited to have this conversation. I think first and foremost, I am a massive football fan. I always have been since day one. My mum is from Manchester and my dad is from Newcastle. So two big footballing cities. That kind of is where I got my love and passion for football. So always being involved, whether that's playing, watching, being in and around the football community started off very young for me. As you mentioned, I then moved into coaching when I was 16. So obviously, played a little bit when I was younger. Decided to do my coaching badges as well as my referee's qualification, and absolutely loved it. From the moment I started coaching, I just really enjoyed working with kids on their development. Obviously, it's all about learning skills related to football, but actually, coaching at grassroots level is way more than that. It's about education, it's about inclusion, and it's about life skills as well. So yeah, I enjoyed working with kids on the pitch. In terms of Chelsea, I worked mainly in the community, so in schools and soccer camps, mainly in the UK, but also abroad. I also worked. I was a goalkeeper, so I worked in the elite training centre on goalkeepers coming up through the academy. Really enjoyed my time at Chelsea, and it was very much, I worked 1 year full time. The rest was very much kind of on the side of my education during college, during university. I then went and studied marketing at Bournemouth University down on the South Coast, which I enjoyed probably too much.
I can imagine.
That was, yeah, definitely. Part of that was a year placement where I then got to taste the industry and get my first work, my first job, effectively. So I was lucky enough to get a placement at the Football Foundation, which is, I'm not sure if you know of the Football Foundation, being stateside, but they're effectively a charity related to the FA. It's basically handling grassroots funding on behalf of the FA, the Premier League, the Department of Culture, Media and Sport, and the Mayor of London. They were effectively my clients. So I looked after events and marketing, which was opening projects, funded projects, grand openings, bringing down a celebrity, doing marketing, raising awareness. So from then it was, obviously I've learned from being on the pitch, and then this was another element of community around, investing in facilities that gave communities the platform and place to hang out, play football, play sport, or social clubs and that type of thing. And then from there went back to university, finished my degree, and that's when I fell into kind of agency world. I say fell into it as very much a conversation with a recruiter where I said, actually, I kind of consciously want to move away from sport, get some other experience. Fell into an agency where I was, working in client services, worked in numerous different roles and positions before starting LoveGunn in 2017. So, in answer to your question, my involvement in sport very much was from that passion and obsession with football from a very young age, which, I've now been lucky enough to transcend into my own business and would I call it a second career? I'm not sure, but from coaching on the pitch to now working with those clubs on their brand and marketing, which I'm sure we'll get onto, has been quite a journey, but one I've absolutely loved.
I love it. Fantastic overview, I would say, to start things off. We'll dive into a little bit more of what you're doing now. But before that, I wanted to dive into the coaching side a little bit more. What was maybe I guess you could say, what was the transition from the playing side to coaching? I'm assuming you played as well, which kind of got you into coaching. But coaching is still a unique aspect, and especially you being a goalkeeper, again, another unique aspect. I think most people will call goalkeepers crazy for the most part. So I love that. I love having a goalkeeper on the podcast. I want to get more into kind of the social and I guess you could say the mental side of things as well. But I'm curious that transitional stage, where did that come from to actually end up coaching?
To be honest with you, and this is kind of brutal mainly on myself, I just wasn't very good. So I played in a club that was semi-professional at the time. I was in the youth system, and I was a second string goalkeeper. I'd often be on the subs bench. I wasn't great at applying myself in training or putting in the work on whether it was in the gym or on the pitch, and coaching seemed to suit me better. I actually went for my level 1 coaching badge because I wasn't playing, and the club I was playing for were willing to part fund that coaching badge to kind of keep me entertained and to grow, especially my leadership qualities. I think whilst I was again a second string goalkeeper, I was always part of like the leadership setup, whether that's just being a personality in the dressing room, somebody that's positive, somebody that's going to motivate other players. That always kind of came naturally to me. So it accidentally happened in terms of doing my coaching badges in a way. And then the venture to working with Chelsea Football Club was purely through people I knew in schools. My mum was a teacher. She had the Chelsea in the community working at her school, got a placement that way, and then that became a job and a role. And the serious side of coaching I see as working in the community, working with kids of all different backgrounds, living different lives, having different opportunities. But there was also that elite training centre level where I worked with goalkeepers that were looking to move into the academy. Also the men's and women's side as well. Being involved in women's football around 10 years ago now, so it's a very different world to what it is now. So the playing journey, to summarise, was probably I wasn't really that good, and actually coaching suited me better. Because I'd like to think I understood the game pretty well, and I could be on the sidelines and motivate and really have an impact on players who wanted to better themselves and enjoy themselves at the end of the day.
No, I love it, and I think we'll get into more of the impact from like a club like Chelsea and the branding work and things that you've been able to do now, and it really shows that there's more impact than just what you see on the field on a Saturday or Sunday, that there's impact within the communities, and they actually are striving to make a difference in many different outlets. So I think we'll get into that later on. But I remember when we first spoke, I said, I just love the name LoveGunn. Like there's just so much to it, and it's so simple. So the name is simple. I know there's a much more complex background to it, but for those listening, if you can just give a quick overview of what LoveGunn is, maybe the inspiration behind the name if they haven't clicked already, and then we'll dive into some of the work and so on that you've been doing so far.
Yeah, absolutely. So the name, a lot of people have wild guesses at what the name could be. It's purely my last name, Gunn, and my business partner, Tom. So he's Tom Love, and I'm Chris Gunn, and it would have been rude not to put those two names together. So we went with LoveGunn rather than Gun Love for obvious reasons. It's a memorable name. People love it. As our first conversation, you were interested by it, and many people were. It sticks in people's minds, and also to kind of move very seamlessly into what LoveGunn are about. Our strapline is right from the heart, straight to the point. So that links very nicely to the LoveGunn element. And that nicely summarizes what we do. So we're a full service creative agency, but we specialize in branding, and brand is at the very center of what we do. So effectively breaking that down, we help brands find their voice, sharpen their identity, and speak with clarity. So speak to their audience effectively, impactfully, if that's a word. It's getting to the heart of what a brand stands for, and crafting stories that really cut through. So whether that is a football fan, we're going to be talking a lot about sport here, or that is a customer that's buying a drink, or somebody that is, a B2B, somebody that's buying a product. It's all about a story that really speaks to them. That's something that they can live by. And every brand should be focusing on building communities, we believe. That's a fan base. That is people that keep coming back for more, whether you're an IT provider or a food and drink brand or a travel brand, an airline. You should be creating a community-like atmosphere through storytelling, through brand experience, and then post service as well. So yeah, that's what we specialize in doing. First, and it's important to stress we're non-sector specific, so we work with lots of different brands in different sectors. So in tech, sustainability, we work a lot in finance. At the moment, we're working with food and drink brand, but we're deep rooted in automotive, but also particularly sport, which I know is going to be a very strong theme to this conversation that we're having today. But yeah, we brand is at the center of what we do, but we offer full service creative. So that is everything from market research through to strategy and creative. And in that creative kind of bucket is everything from, we do video, photography, websites, apps. But yeah, a creative consultancy with brand at the very center of what we do is where we specialize.
What's I'm always fascinated in the founder story. Like there's always a unique kind of point of view. Were you always very like entrepreneurial minded? Did you always have that kind of thing of, I'm going to go start my own thing? I'm curious around that.
Definitely. Back in my coaching days, my first thought was, I want to start my own coaching company. There is an opportunity here. And then went to university, did marketing and saw more of the brand angle. I had a real passion for understanding brands. Also, the whole point about being non-sector specific is we love getting under the skin of different brands in different spaces and actually applying thinking from different sectors to those brands. So football is a really good example. Every brand should think like a football club. You've got this audience, you've got this loyal fan base, but how do you attract new fans? And that is, really relevant to every single brand, regardless of what you deliver. So, whether it's in terms of how we set up and how the business was formed, it was myself and my business partner met at a previous agency. He was creative director, so on the design side, and I was client services. And we really got along. We had a similar interest and passion to start our own thing, to run our own business. And the stars aligned when a good friend of mine started his own business. He needed support in brand, ongoing creative and design. So we started working with him. Tom, my business partner, also had a client, TVR, the car brand. So kind of Jungle Creations was the other agency. So we had Jungle Creations, TVR to start with, and a couple of other startups. So yeah, it was very much organically formed. We found a few clients, we kicked things off, we got along, and the rest is history. I actually started LoveGunn when I was 26. And Tom is slightly older than me. I won't reveal his age. He can do that. But yeah, I think for me, I now I'm a bit older, almost 8 years later. I often say to Tom, "You were mad starting a business with me. I was a kid." But he saw that in me. We work really well together and closely. We've also got really clearly defined roles. He's a creative. His strategy and brand is what he is brilliant at. He's the best in the world, in my opinion. And alongside that, I have that kind of entrepreneurial spirit. I like to think I'm good with clients, and run the business side. So I can, release him and the creative team to go and be brilliant, whilst we manage the clients, make sure they're happy, bring in new business, hopefully, and tell the story of LoveGunn whilst making people get paid. Making sure people get paid, and spinning lots of plates. So yeah, that was the founding story and how we kick things off as Love and Gunn.
Did you have that, so you mentioned you kind of had some clients lined up, which worked out well so that you could kind of take that transition. But did you have that leap of faith moment where you kind of just had to jump and hope that there was another spot to land on in the meantime?
A little bit. I think, looking back, I didn't give it a second thought. People often ask me, was it daunting? What was there a trigger point which made you think, right, I'm gonna take this leap? But really, it was a no brainer for me. There was an opportunity to work with someone super talented, that was willing to back me as a more experienced person as well. We both had a good contact base to start with, and it felt pretty risk free from that perspective. I wouldn't have taken that leap of faith if we didn't have clients lined up, if we didn't have people to work alongside. I'm maybe a little bit more risk averse when it comes to that. So we had a revenue stream from day one. But we've never taken investment. We're fully self-funded, myself and Tom own the business. We're an independent agency, so we're really proud to be as well. So part of our growth journey as well is making sure that we grow independently and have all of the amazing traits of an independent agency and a small business as well. One that's agile, one that's flexible, and hopefully has fresh thinking and doing great work.
I think at some point we have to bring Tom on as well, because I want to ask this question in the nicest way possible, but best and worst thing about having a co-founder, and then we'll dive into some of the projects that you guys have worked on so far.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, best and worst. Do you know what? We've been doing this for, as I said, it'll be 8 years in June. We've barely crossed a word, which, touch wood, it could happen.
That's what I was going to ask along that.
Yeah, we as I said, we have clearly defined roles. I think I know a lot of other creative design agencies that are, there's either one founder or two founders that are both creatives, and there's, more chance they'll butt heads. But also, when again, we're a startup, we have those peaks and troughs. It's a bit of a roller coaster. And when we're dipping, for example, COVID, where, like everyone, a lot of work disappeared. We were scrapping around for as much work as we could, and Tom was doing all of the creative, the design, and there's only so much I could do. There's that balance of roles. I think for me, the best thing about having a co-founder is you're in it together. We can rely on each other, we can counsel one another, we can work out problems together, and we can bring perspective. It was very recently, I won't, delve into detail, but I was more, passionate in one way, and Tom was in another, more kind of cool-headed and more calm about a situation. And, he taught me to take a breath, and that was the best thing that could have happened, because we dealt with the situation in a much better way. So working together, and then I think the worst thing could also be seen as the best thing, but it's probably accountability. We're good at holding each other accountable, and you can't hide from one another. You've both got to be pushing in the same direction. So yeah, it's a good and bad thing. There's no place to hide. I'm sure as a sole founder, there's the challenge of self-motivating. But yeah, we've got each other, and it very much is a partnership. And I firmly believe we steer the ship together.
And you bring up the COVID times and having to deal with that. Can you break it down a little bit more in terms of, like, I think as a founder, or even in your case, a co-founder, it's difficult to get through a stage where everything basically shut down at once. Can you kind of talk us through that time and what, like, actually went down, like, in terms of no future client projects or nothing to work on, and kind of trying to figure out, okay, what are the next steps here? Because I think a lot of founders and entrepreneurs as a whole went through a similar process in that time.
Yeah, so the COVID story is quite an interesting one, because, there's our experience, but it's what we learned from it and how we pivoted that is actually probably crafted who LoveGunn are today. So from the beginning, we just like everyone in that March 2020 month, we shut things down and lost 80% of our work. That was, a significant amount. In terms of we had a few core clients, and one being in sport, where football matches were stopped. So the work stopped. So yeah, in terms of the LoveGunn story and history, it probably was the most challenging time. We had to, furlough the team, and it was, I think what people forget about those early COVID days is there was so much uncertainty. For everyone, I'm not saying poor me in the slightest, but there was a lot of uncertainty around for employers, saying, there was this furlough scheme that was floated by the UK government. I'm not sure if you have an equivalent in the US, but there was support for businesses, but no one knew when it was coming. Yeah. So we had a fairly young team, which we had to turn around to and say, look, we're going to put you on furlough when it arrives. However, we don't know when it's going to arrive. So we would recommend it's a form of redundancy up until that point. So our brilliantly talented team back then, who we will always love and admire, and we see them now on their careers doing amazingly well. They just got snapped up pretty quickly. Some got jobs pretty quick, so furlough was never actually appropriate. So effectively, we went down just to Tom and I. We had a few freelancers that we were working with casually. That meant that we could continue working with them. And Tom and I got in a room, and we said, right, what do we do, and how are we going to survive, and what do we do well? So first things first, we reached out to existing clients and people we work with, and we did a lot of great work that we look back on. And it was only recently we took a step back and patted ourselves on the back. We did a lot of initiatives to support communities. We worked with the UK government on a fact-checking website. There were so many rumours and fake news around COVID, and drinking bleach will kill the virus, and stuff like that. So we worked on a fact-checking website. We also worked with FIFA, not FIFA Direct, sorry, the FIFA when it was called FIFA, the game. We did a FIFA tournament, which professional players like James Maddison and others got involved with. So we did some community initiatives, but then we also reached out to clients and said, how can we support you ongoing? And that kind of was the lifeblood that kept us going for a while. And then longer term, we sat down and we actually worked with a consultant, a guy called Paul, who's works for LoveGunn full time now. And we niched down. So we decided to focus on being a branding agency specifically. So previously full service, working, with the likes of Chelsea Football Club and other brands, which, we'll get onto. But we then decided to focus on rebrands only. We saw an opportunity with COVID, lots of new businesses being born, lots of businesses pivoting their proposition, needing to relook at their story, their narrative, their brand identity. So we effectively created a few rebrand packages, and I just went out and sold them, and Tom did the work. And that paved the way for the next kind of 4 years, taking us to early 2024. That was a brilliant decision for us. It meant that we grew year on year, and we recovered really well, and became known for doing rebrands effectively, and the work kept coming. So I'm sure there was a bit of luck involved in terms of that pivot and making the right choice and the right decision, but one we worked really hard on making a success. And now moving into 2024 and now into 2025, we've reopened our full service element. So brand always at the center of what we do. Most clients that come to us organically are coming to us for a rebrand or to relook at their story or relook at a campaign. But we're doing that more kind of full service retained approach where we look after clients ongoing through lots of different touch points creatively. So yeah, COVID's a difficult time, just like for everyone. And again, I know there are some horrible stories out there, but one that we weathered the initial storm. We, to keep that storm analogy, steered the ship in another direction. And we took a risk. We took a gamble, focusing on that niche. But luckily it paid off. And that's kind of really central to who we are as LoveGunn today, and what we do on focusing our story.
Yeah, I think, like you say, a difficult time for everyone. But I think the reason I like kind of going back and listening to those stories is that I'm sure someone's going through, whether they're starting their own company now or starting something in the future, and inevitably a valley will hit where you're in a moment like that and you do have to restructure and reorganize and think, okay, what are my next steps here? And hopefully this will then bring some inspiration into how to exactly approach that, or at least have an idea of where to go about that.
I hope so.
We'll get into let's flip things around. We'll get into the positive side of things, some of the cool projects that you have been working on, that you're working on at the moment, kind of a little bit of everything. I think the first one that when we first started speaking that came to mind for me was Oxford United. I think a historic club in the English in the English football pyramid as a whole, and a cool way of kind of switching things up. So I think if you want to give a quick overview of the project, maybe the brief or kind of what the original approach was, and then we'll dive into the project itself a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when it comes to elite football, obviously there's a lot of talk about the English league. You've got the Premier League, which is this huge brand that is, it's at the very top of football. Hopefully we can agree on that. And then there are the leagues below, the Championship, League One, League Two, that are, they're gaining traction. I think I saw a stat recently that the Championship, in terms of viewing figures, is second in the world, or third, I think, maybe. So, English football is leading the way in that respect, alongside obviously the European leagues, and obviously there's great stuff going on in the US and in the Middle East. But when outside of that English Premier League that has this, this crazy monopoly around it, both financial monopoly, but also just viewing figures, the teams that go in and out of that league, obviously there's things like parachute payment, but there's a huge difference. And there are a certain level of clubs or, caliber of clubs that can't rely on football results. And that was very much appropriate and relevant to Oxford United. So we actually started working with them when they were in League One. They were part of the promotion push. So we started working them mid-season last year. And they came to us, a new CMO came on board, and he came to us and wanted to stand for something. He wanted Oxford to represent something, and he didn't want that to be linked to on the pitch. Obviously, there's an element that needs to be linked to on the pitch, but you can't control performance. A marketing team can't control performance. I firmly believe they can impact that, by influencing fans and the culture around a club. But it's about telling a story that is much more. And for a city like Oxford, which is just steeped in history, not just the obvious of Oxford University, but it's architecturally beautiful. So many famous people from Oxford or have lived in Oxford, whether that's poets or storytellers or actors or musicians. So much has gone on in Oxford, and there is so much history there that is way more than just a football club. So I think the challenge was rebranding a club that is rooted in local pride and has a football team that was again, this is definitely luck. They got promoted as we were launching the brand, which is the perfect time to get a brand out there. But yeah, they needed to modernize. They needed to tell a story that evoked passion and linked to the story of Oxford, but also told the story of the fans, which obviously every club needed to do. But clubs that are in those lower leagues, they need to tell a story to their fans, to their audiences that are much more than the likes of the mega brands like Man United, like Liverpool, like Real Madrid. I'm sure some listeners will find it hilarious that I used Man United first there, but they're still a big brand despite being terrible at football. So yeah, Oxford is a big challenge, but I'm all about people, whether that's fans or people that work in a club. And the Oxford team, Oxford United team that we dealt with, the marketing team that we still work with today, are just a brilliant bunch of people. They are entrepreneurial in a sense. They want to build something different. They wanted to create something bold and unique and different. But there was a real trust and understanding of one another. There's everyone that runs an agency would always say some clients, they just wish they trust them. They work together. We're the experts. Trust us. Work with us. And Oxford, we're very much that. We worked together. Everything was collaborative. But what we created, I believe, is a brand that represents that city, that place in terms of its history, its culture, its heritage. But we've also created a modern twist on that. It looks bold, it looks brave, it looks different.
I would say in terms of rebranding a club, I think many have gone the right way and many have gone the wrong way. And I think it's tough to sometimes know, okay, we're trying, I think you used some of the words there, trying to be bold, trying to bring a new edge to it. But the reality is it's in a historic club and it's got a huge fan base behind it, even being not necessarily the highest level of English football. How do you Are you guys having conversations like with this approach? Did you have conversations with the fans to see what they were looking for? Because at the end of the day, I think success in this case would be determined by how the fans look at it and how the club looks at it. But I think the fans are a lot louder than anyone else. So you have to be really careful with how you approach this. I'm curious the fan integration with this. How did that look for you guys?
Yeah, for us, it really differs. To divert quickly away, when we worked with Chelsea for 4 years, the fan involvement was very, very in depth. So we were doing lots of workshops, surveys, and we did workshops around the world with audiences in the UK and Asia and the US to understand markets, global supporters clubs. So that type of fan engagement is really important, and it's appropriate to some clubs and some groups. With Oxford United, really important again, but it was very much led by the club. We offer that workshopping, those surveys, that qualitative and quantitative research we offer as a service, but Oxford came to that with us in terms of what their fans believe from the off in terms of sentiment around the club, around the story, around what means something to them when it comes to Oxford. So we had that presented to us, which was really, really great. But it was the process was all around testing as we went as well. So testing ideas with small samples of supporters. Honestly, we're a creative agency, and part of our process is testing ideas and pushing the boat out. We're really happy with what we created, but I won't lie, we did suggest changing the badge. I'm sorry, we did. Oxford have been blessed with a bull.
Yeah.
Everybody knows the Chicago Bulls. Everybody knows that brand. Everybody wants that bull on their polo shirt or their hat. As soon as you see it, you recognize it. And Oxford can, and I think will, own that one day. But again, part of the process, and for us, in terms of this really stresses the collaboration element, we didn't want to tear up everything and, annoy, as you say, the loyal fan base that are there week in and week out. So we, without giving anything away, we created this system. Actually, this isn't giving things away. We created a system around club, culture, and community. And there is the badges stripped back for each of those elements. So you've got the shield and the ox as is, with some subtle tweaks that is currently there, which again we tested with the fans. They were receptive. They enjoyed it with specialist fan groups, and then a slightly refined bull for the community element. And then even more refined for the culture element. So when we talk about culture, it's fashion, it's music, it's everything that lives and exists around communities, around, specifically sport, that is so important. So hopefully we see that brand come to life more and more. Obviously, we've seen the famous cases of, Leeds United all those years ago doing changing their badge and getting huge backlash. I was recently quite vocal on LinkedIn about the concept of a certain club in League One, who we shan't name, putting 3 badges on their website and saying, let's do a fan vote. For me, that isn't the right approach. That isn't listening. That isn't taking on feedback and refining and working together. That's of putting a vote out and the best one wins. There's no emotional story. There's no why. There's no what this means for the club. What we've done for Oxford is we've created a roadmap that will hopefully work for them over the next 1, 3, 5 years. I mean, they can dial it up and down and use the badge differently to represent the really important areas of their club. And just to kind of epitomise what an incredible club they are, they've recently launched the Oxford United Run Club, which is a community-based run club that is it's based around community, bringing people together, like-minded people, encouraging people to participate in sport, to get fit, to get active, and they're doing incredibly well. They've got great numbers going down there. They're working with brands, so that means they can grow it. They can offer more than just meet here and let's go for a run. And that's really is the essence of the brand, and that's also why I believe building a brand and a story and culture and community is so important for clubs that are outside that that crazy money kind of bubble. in the top six or in Europe. They need to engage in other ways. And football clubs have the last thing I'll say on it, the football clubs have this unique opportunity to speak to an engaged audience. There's got to be data out there around, football clubs and their audience. I'm sure they're more impactful than, government communications. It is their, viewership, supporters, the numbers are just rising. And this is why it's really important to keep football accessible. But that's a different conversation, and that's what we focused on with Oxford, all around club, community, culture, and that's the conversation I'll be having with numerous other football clubs and brands involved in sport.
From Oxford United, was there one moment, whether it was the reveal or something alongside that just really stood out to you still to this day?
It's ongoing, We only properly launched it this season, and as I say, it's a long-term plan in terms of what we're doing with them. We're talking about kit launches at the moment and creating video content and to tell the story in a more impactful way. So I'm hoping those proud moments are still to come. But for me, it was purely my own interest was the feedback we got, just overwhelmingly positive. And I really think that that Be Inspired story around the strap line, the graphical system by the Spires, linking that to the typeface. I'm obviously speaking really in-depth, geeky design stuff, but yeah, that the story is it is really smooth, and it once you get it, it's kind of like an aha moment. You when you get it, and that is a really nice story that you can get behind. It's linked to the values, it's linked to the purpose, it's linked to the city. There's a real nice woven story, and the feedback that we got across social media, we got great PR, and obviously feedback from the client is most important, and the fans too. Really, really well adopted, and the spirit around Oxford is incredible. At the moment, they're fighting to stay in the Championship. I'm really hoping they do, because they deserve to. But there is a fantastic spirit around the club, and even if you just go on their Instagram, the type of content they're creating, there is a passion and warmth and care around the club that I really do think comes from that core story and narrative that then transcends across how the club looks and feels. So whether that's on the pitch side LEDs, the kit, the program, the social, the video content, how the players speak. The values that every single employee in the club buys into, whether it's the CEO or the kit man or the bus driver or whoever, or the player who's on 30 grand a week or however much, they're all buying into the same values and the same story, and that's what we specialize in doing, and we did with Oxford. And yeah, that for me was the proudest moment. That incredible feedback, and lots of great conversations coming off the back of it as well.
You're speaking like a proud father, so I love to see it from your end. Should we jump into the Chelsea side of things? I think this from my side of hearing your story and hearing the breakdown of it was pretty cool. Like we mentioned at the beginning, at 16 years old, you're coaching at Chelsea. Kind of the full circle happens. You start the agency, and now they're your first client, right? Or one of the first clients?
Yeah, one of, yeah.
In the first 6 months or something like that. I remember the timeline. So break down kind of what you did for them, the project itself, and then again we'll kind of get into a little bit more of the nitty gritty side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, I worked for Chelsea for 6 years, but in the community, completely different. The community and the core club obviously speak to each other, but the marketing team, brand team don't have too much involvement. So it wasn't like I had an endorsement necessarily. It was actually through a friend of a friend. We were invited to a tech hack. So an incubator where they invited startups and businesses down to Stamford Bridge to basically learn from the club for a week. So learn many different representatives for different departments. So whether it was hospitality, brand, marketing, pitch day, groundsman, every element of the club came to speak to this incubator of 15 different businesses, which we were lucky enough to be a part of, and told their story, what's going on in the club, what the ambition is and in the future is. And the overall kind of challenge was how do we increase fans globally? It was really, really kind of broad and a wide open brief. So Monday through to Thursday, learned from the club. And then on Friday, we got every single business that was there, got the opportunity to, based on what they learned, pitch some ideas. Out of 15 of the businesses, we pitched our ideas. And I think the moment we finished our presentation, I think we got something like 10, 15 minutes each. I kind of like looked up and saw the face of the panel and like heard the applause we got. And I kind of knew then that we'd nailed it, and came up with some ideas that they really loved. So off the back of that, there was probably a 6-month period where we were, we got the amazing feedback on the day, and we were discussing with the club what support we could give. And during that time, we actually got invited to pitch on another project that was completely unrelated. They were like, we've heard about you. We know that you're doing great work. Here's an opportunity to pitch. And that was rebranding the global youth proposition. So the kids club, effectively, membership proposition for 6 to 13-year-olds. So we pitched against 4 other agencies. The 3 other agencies were big global brands, and we won it. So we won that, and that was an incredible project to be a part of. It was really ambitious at the time in terms of creating a supporters club for kids that was much more than, you sign up at the start of the season, you get a cuddly toy and a magazine in the post. We did market research that was relevant to many clubs, and I'm sure it still is today. So it's creating a digital experience, a website, a platform where kids can go, where they can, hang out, they can play games, they can watch exclusive video content, they can enter competitions. And again, as I talked about earlier, inspiring fans early and engaging them. So the focus was, how do we engage them, but also fans globally? So as I said, we did focus groups here in London, but with international audiences as well, to say, why would you support Chelsea rather than LA Galaxy, who were probably the biggest at the time before Mr. Beckham arrived. Although, that's a very English perspective there, isn't it? 2 completely different clubs. So yeah, that kind of snowballed where we did that project. We did the project that we originally pitched, which was around repositioning the global supporters clubs, not just youth, the adult supporters clubs, around how you create a clearer proposition, clearer story. We work with the club on actually restructuring what supporters clubs are and do, and how they communicate with fans, whether they're in Delhi or New Orleans or in Cape Town, all over the world, different supporters groups which are literally everywhere. And yeah, snowballed. We worked with them in the end, Chelsea, for 4 years. Worked on so many different areas of the club, from corporate hospitality to their stadium catering and grabbing a burger. Worked on their internal HR brand. We did lots of illustration. 4 years of great work working with a really incredible club that was going through a period of change as well. They were planning on building a new stadium at the time. They were winning trophies. They won the Champions League whilst we were working with them. And obviously a really fascinating thing to do as myself, working with the community, working as a coach, really kind of boots on the ground, working in communities and schools, all the way through to working with their brand and marketing team on huge campaigns that we're seeing globally. It's a proud contrast, and one that was really interesting. We still kind of involved with the club-ish. Still know a lot of guys there that are doing great work. Obviously, we're working with the red side of London these days, but still got a soft spot in my heart for Chelsea, even though I do not care for how they do on the pitch at all. I would rather they didn't win.
I want to dive into the international side. You've hinted at it a few times there. So from an Englishman working at like the agency's English as well, so you're fully from the UK. How do you dive into like what are some of the key aspects of those different supporters groups? Because you're talking about New York, you're talking about Delhi. Like there's such a vast change in terms of the perspective, what fanship is look like from different countries and different cultures. So for you guys, how did you measure that, and what were the like what were the actual responses in terms of what fans were looking like and why they supported Chelsea? And if you can just give us a rundown of like how some of the cultures differentiated that actual like fanity and loyalty to the club.
Yeah, so I'll skip to the end with the headline stat, which is 12 months after working with Chelsea on their global supporters clubs, we increased the supporters clubs numbers by 800%. So that's both people within supporters clubs, but also supporters clubs themselves. So new clubs were formed. Mm-hmm. And really, it came down to communication. It came to giving fans the tools to actually gather and spend time together. So that was helping them communicate. So we created an online platform, which is effectively like an intranet where they can communicate, they can talk with the club. We created an editable tool where they can go in and create their own assets. So, when people think of supporters clubs, they think of a bar or a community hub where people go to watch a game. At sometimes crazy hours of the morning because you're syncing up with the UK. So it was creating templates like posters that they could print off and put in the local bar, or social media posts to make it uniform. And also, to be honest, it was to avoid brand damage as well. There was a lot of there's obviously counterfeit shirt issues and the brand not being used in a way that was consistent. So it was giving the tools for fans to do that, both practically but also communication tools as well. We did lots of guidelines and handbooks on if you're setting up a supporters club, this is how you do it. This is whether you're in a place that we did some research around accessibility, around how fast the internet was and barriers to accessing the club or people within the club or tools within the club. And in certain areas, almost 100% of fans only had mobile phones. They didn't have laptops or computers. So it was making it accessible to people on phones, launching WhatsApp communities, and giving them all those tools to do that. And it was also actually working with the club on, real granular details around what does the membership system look like. So we restructured it. I think it was gold. This is a few years ago now. Gold, silver, bronze. So different levels. So you're in a supporters club, but you can also be subscribed to a different level, which will give you access to potential games, to stadium tours, but also digital touch points as well. So it's brands reaching out much further, but also, and this almost leads us into the work we're doing with Arsenal and MG now, is actually a club and a brand is much more than just that one brand. It's all the communities and other sponsors that are around it. So as I mentioned, Arsenal, Chelsea, 30, 40, 50 sponsors with fan groups globally. It's giving them access to those brands as well. So, as I said, you can get your tires or your trainers or your headphones. You get exclusive discounts, you get access, and also vice versa. So those brands know who those audiences are, and they can grow the fan base off the back of that. If you're buying Nike, you're affiliating yourself to their group of clubs, whether that is basketball, whether that is football, or others. There is that brand affiliation, but it's much more broad now as well. So yeah, when it comes to global supporters, it's really is quite broad, and it was a challenge. We worked very closely with the club. Obviously, a lot of these things sit outside creative brand, but that core storytelling and communication was really key, and then giving them the tools to gather, to be communities, to be fans, and have better communication with the club as well, which was so important.
I think I almost don't need to be here. You transition topics perfectly here. We're nailing it so far. We'll get into the Arsenal side of things then. I think we could go on and on about each different project, but let's touch on Arsenal. I think the most recent out of the three. Talk to us through similar kind of overview and breakdown of what that actually looks like. But then I think what you were transitioning to there in terms of balancing the needs of the club, the brand, the players, how that all kind of links together.
Yeah, absolutely. So where we're at right now is, going back to you asking me who LoveGunn are. We're a branding agency with full service creative, but what I do and I'm leading at LoveGunn, which is a fairly new proposition is working on linking brands and sponsors alike. Brands and football clubs alike. So at the moment, we work with MG Motors and Arsenal. MG were originally our clients, so we work with MG on their car range, on working with them as a business, but they also sponsor Arsenal, so we work with them on activating the partnership with Arsenal. Again, I've repeated many times on this call, many football clubs have multiple sponsors. What I've learned is multiple sponsors at many football clubs don't utilize their activity. You know, they put the logo on the shirt or on the LED board. They pay, quite a lot of money to do so, and they don't actively, they don't push that. They don't activate it. They don't leverage. And that's much more than, and again, I'm not speaking about MG and Arsenal. They definitely do, and we lead that and make sure it happens. But, it's much more than just, you get access with the players 4 times a season. You can do a piece of social content. You get tagged in a post. There is that element. There is activating. There is making sure the brands are working together, but it's also cultural alignment as well, making sure the stories are working, succinctly as well. So what I'm doing is I'm working with the likes of Arsenal and MG, but also Oxford and their sponsors and other clubs that should remain unnamed. But actually, who are they targeting? Why do you choose X sponsor to be on your shirt or to be affiliated with the club? Because they should align with your club values. It shouldn't just be a check. So if you align that story, if you have a clear story that runs together, it's a seamless partnership, and then you're growing together, and that helps build that fan base, and that helps build the audience. So it's really obvious from a brand perspective. If I'm a sponsor, I want that 100 million followers on cross social, that I have their data, I can speak to them directly, and then I'm affiliated with that club. That is, there's the complete opposite, which is, if I affiliate with Arsenal, does that mean Tottenham fans aren't going to buy, an MG? I doubt it. But then, from a football club, it's also identifying the right sponsors, which obviously is around money. Especially clubs outside the Premier League, they need sponsors to survive. But actually choosing a sponsor that really aligns with your objectives, whether it's local or, that understands your audience, that have a deep-rooted interest in Oxford, in Newcastle, in Middlesbrough, wherever, and ensuring that is relevant. And we're doing that internationally as well. So, whether that's a club in the UK wanting to engage a US audience, or vice versa, club in the US trying to understand. So at the moment, we're really bridging that gap, and trying to focus on bridging that gap in terms of that key storytelling for a club to attract the right sponsors and bring them on board, and then activate those. So creating video content, creating campaigns like we do for MG and Arsenal, and then also on the brand side as well to understand, for some brands it's not right to work with Barcelona and spend 100 millions on it. It's better to actually work with a local club that actually you can have a much more direct impact and a really succinct and clear conversation with a select group of people, because you sell boats in Monaco rather than on a global level. So for us it's identifying that. So going back to MG and Arsenal, it's the mutually beneficial relationship, representing both. Obviously the focus is on MG as our core client. Understanding audiences, getting the brand out there. Brand awareness is really important for a company like MG, but at the end of the day, it's also, selling cars is really important too. So that's through local dealerships. It's giving Arsenal supporters exclusive discounts through the affinity scheme, season ticket holders, but also getting MG's bang for their buck as well. So we're working on video content. We recently did a shoot with 9 of the players, including Saka, Trossard, Ben White, and many others. And with the women's team as well, we've got a shoot coming up with the women's team too. Pitchside LEDs, making sure that we're using all of their remit as well. So we're really involved on a strategic level, planning to make sure our KPIs are aligned and we're working together, and storytelling is aligned from that angle, from the top line, but then also how we activate creatively to make sure that we're producing content, things are going out across the social, we're doing video, and we're making the most of the partnership for both sides, but particularly MG.
For a campaign like this, I've always just been curious from my point of view. Like, you take a brand like a Cadbury or an Apple or a Samsung or something like that, and you're selling a product that can be, say, 5 to 10 pounds for something like a Cadbury chocolate or something like that. Then you have an Apple product that's maybe a couple £100, still fairly accessible, I would say, for most fans that would be able to afford that. But then when you move up to something like a brand like MG Motors, now you're talking tens of thousands of pounds. And this isn't easy. This isn't an easy product to just sell over the table sort of thing. So how do you approach the campaign to not make it more accessible, but how do you like go about that in terms of actually selling the product to the right part of the fan base that would actually be willing to purchase a product like that?
It's a really good question. And I think there's probably a few different answers that would, would come from a few different people. For me and my personal perspective, it's what's really important for MG is brand awareness, and Arsenal give them that platform. So MG have a long history as a UK car brand. They've been around for 100 years, but they're in recent years their business model has changed a bit, and the products and cars that they have are changing dramatically. So it's actually telling that story through Arsenal, through a football club that has that same type of history and heritage. And that is a clear alignment between MG and Arsenal. They're steeped in UK history and the very kind of centre of the backbone of the company through, the working classes and, built and made in the UK. So that is aligned. So that is mutually beneficial. And then for MG, it's brand awareness. It's using and leveraging Arsenal's fan base to, affiliate with them. So that is, that's a mark of trust and being part of that. But as I mentioned, there is the affinity scheme, which is available to all Arsenal season ticket holders and certain levels of membership, who get a discount on cars, which is a really brilliant perk, so that they can get that discount. So there is that direct impact, and obviously, the higher value of product, the bigger percentage discount you get. But with Arsenal MG as well, it's also working with local dealers, obviously dealerships that sell cars, working with them, engaging communities, and MG making an impact too. So not to give anything away, but the work we're doing with the women's team coming up is partnering with a really great charity focused on participation, particularly in women's sport. And the idea there is engaging in community as well and giving something back, which obviously is really essential to Arsenal as well as MG too. So yeah, there's many different challenges when it comes to different brands at different levels. Like Oxford, their front of shirt sponsor is Baxi, which is a boiler brand. Obviously, a boiler in a home, if all goes to plan, you should only be buying one of those kind of once a lifetime, twice, 3 times maybe. So it's about brand awareness. It's about making sure that the brand equity is built and you're working alongside each other for a mutually beneficial partnership. But there's so many different layers to it. But at the end of the day, the last thing I'll say on that is it's all about ROI as well. So actually telling a clear and compelling story actually means great ROI. Oxford having an amazing story that is built on their city, that is built on culture, that represents their fans, that is inspiring and will inspire a next generation of fans, that attracts better sponsors. And that is case in point with Baxi. Baxi came on board through that storytelling process as the brand came live. They bought into that. They're a fairly local business and have a definite interest in the UK. And that was a match made in heaven, and they've signed up to a longer term partnership. And that is what I'd say to every single football club brand. There is that mutually beneficial partnership of football clubs have this incredible engaged audience that is unrivaled in other sectors, and vice versa. Clubs can work with brands that really buy into their story and live their values. but you've got to have that clear story from the off, and that's what we're specialising in doing, in helping businesses off the back of all this experience we've got with Chelsea, with Oxford, but also specifically MG and Arsenal, which is an existing case. Arsenal are a great club to work with, and MG, brilliant brand as well, who are growing, doing great things. Great models as well, the new cars. I couldn't recommend highly enough. I'm not on commission, I promise.
Yeah, we'll have the referral link down below. In terms of the Arsenal side of things, I'm always interested in the interactions with players. So how did you guys feel from your side in terms of, you said working with the club is already fantastic, but in terms of the players, I've heard it's very like you have 10 minutes here, you have to film X amount, and then they kind of move on, and it's just like a herding cattle around. But I'm curious from your side of things, what is that like?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. We with the activations that we've recently done with the men's team, because that's in the past. Speaking from experience, we got half an hour with 3 players, so it's always in threes. There's a rule with Arsenal that you've got to use 3 players in content. You've got half an hour with them. You've got to be ready. You've got to have your plan in place. So the recent campaign we did was driving simulator, so racing around a track in the Cyberster, MG Cyberster, which is their 2-seater electric sports car, the only 2-seater electric sports car. And they raced it around the Silverstone track on a simulator, and it's episodic content with each player pitching up against each other. Brilliant, really engaging. I really recommend people watch because it is great. It's so good seeing the players interact. I think particularly Bukayo Saka and Ben White are very funny duo. Ben White has such a kind of dry sense of humor where he's delivering these kind of like digs at Saka, which, are full of love, but they come across pretty savage. But yeah, you do have that short window, but they're great. They're on a whole really personable bunch of guys that are professional as well. They're there to do a job, but also have fun with it, and really engaging, really friendly. And there's a lot of cool stuff going on. As I say, we've got some really exciting stuff planned with the women's team, but also match day involvement there. We're also talking with the club around players' involvement with the cars, more kind of longer term, driving the cars. There's a lot of exciting stuff going on. But on a whole, the players have been great, really, really good to work with. Despite having that short window of time, and things change, But again, I think I've been spoiled to an extent working as a 16, 17, 18-year-old. I spent the whole summer at the Chelsea training ground, and I had a lot of exposure to players, and was around them, and kind of quickly learned early on that they're human beings, and they're, nice people from all over the world, different cultures, different backgrounds, willing to give their time. Obviously, you get some that are a little bit more withheld, introverted maybe, and that's transcended all the way to 20 years. I'm not that old. 10 years later, where the players are they're human beings. They're there to do a job, and they're incredible athletes and brilliant professionals. But they're also good people to be around on the whole.
I know it's starting to get late there in the UK, so we're going to try and wrap things up here as soon as possible. We'll finish off with some quick fire questions. I think the first one, you sent me over some information of things that I could kind of go around the conversation and see what we could talk about. One of the photos is just casually you with Sir Alex Ferguson. Can we get any context around that, because we haven't really mentioned Man United here at all? I would love to hear what happened and how you got into the same room as him.
Yeah, so Sir Alex Ferguson is a hero of mine, to the extent that my cat is actually called Sir Alex. We named him Sir Alex after the man, the legend. Working for the Football Foundation, that job that I mentioned probably about an hour ago now. One of the first project openings I was involved with was in Manchester, and Sir Alex Ferguson was doing the opening. So incredible for me. I think it was the first month maybe of my 12-month placement working in the Football Foundation. I planned the event, went down, spoke with him, briefed him, was part of the team interviewing him, creating content, and posting that on YouTube. So incredible experience to meet him again. Everything I hoped for and more, just a really kind and generous man that gave us time, treated everybody respectfully, went round and shook everybody's hands, not just me and the kind of the team involved, but also there were lots of school kids there. He gave them all time and was epic. It also coincided with, it was his last season. So this was 2013. It was a few months later he announced he was retiring. So really fortunate to have been there. But the photo you saw is I look like I'm photobombing. I kind of am.
You're like jumping in the way of it.
Yeah, I was there. I was part of the conversation, and the sly photo that we tasked my colleague with doing, I sway to one side and do a cheesy grin that makes it look like, it could be AI, but it was well before AI was around.
No, it's a brilliant story. I've been reading, I think it's called Leadership Principles or something. It's from him, and he kind of breaks down some of the key aspects of his career, but also post-career and what he's been working on now. So from my side, being a Liverpool fan, it's hard not to support him because of the book now reading. Like, it's just hard not to fall in love with what he's done. But at the end of the day, still will always be a Liverpool fan. So that's just the way it goes. Yeah.
Thank you. You will be winning the Premier League.
I hope so. We're still technically not there yet, but we should be after this weekend. The second one, also a very cool photo at Stamford Bridge, being able to play there. So I'd love to hear the context around that, and then we can wrap things up.
Yeah, again, I've been lucky enough to spend quite a lot of time on Stamford Bridge because, again, in my coaching days, at the end of every season, the club, and most clubs do this, they generously kind of allow community initiatives and sponsors and people to get involved on the pitch before they tear it off and they replace it ahead of the new season. So coached on it a few times, brought soccer schools down there, and spent a good amount of time on the Stamford Bridge pitch. But most recently, the photo that you saw, we were invited down as an agency that worked with Chelsea to play in a tournament with lots of other partners, video agencies, other creative agencies, but also a lot of influencers as well. We're slightly starstruck with some of the people that turned up, lots of Sky Sports presenters and YouTubers. It was a tournament. We were lucky enough to get through to the final, and we lost on penalties, which was painful. Tom Love, my business partner, was our goalkeeper, and he had a blinder all tournament, made some great saves, but he didn't save any penalties in the shootout, which I blame him. I don't at all. It was one of those shootouts where everyone kept scoring, and then eventually someone from our team skied it. I didn't get a penalty. I stood back and let others take a penalty, but I did get an assist. I didn't score, but during the tournament I got an assist, which is a great claim to fame. And again, a really good day, and a good experience to play on a big Premier League pitch like that.
Yeah, it's not a bad way to finish off the episode here with you now, Chris. If there's any last words from your end, and then anything you want to shout out in terms of where people can find you, the agency, everything like that. I know that's always important, so feel free to shout that out, and then we'll wrap things up.
Yeah, absolutely. I would just say thank you, Chad, for having me. This has been an enjoyable conversation. It's been great to look back at things, I think there's real exciting times ahead for LoveGunn and the work that we're doing. So obviously we focused a lot on football here. We work in many different sectors, not just sport. Mm-hmm. But this exciting proposition of linking sponsors and brands is something that we're getting a lot of traction on. So if anybody's interested in having that conversation, let me know. Or more generally, if anybody's looking for a brand creative partner or just want to have a chat, then drop me a DM on LinkedIn is the best. I'm a LinkedIn guy. So Christian Gunn is my full name to tag that, but also check out LoveGunn. LoveGunn.co is our website. We're active on Instagram and LinkedIn. We're actually hiring for a few roles at the moment as well. So check out our pages. And thank you again. This has been really enjoyable. I'm actually a fan of the podcast, and I will be continuing to listen. And I look forward to the day you bring on a goalkeeper, because I'm convinced they're not as mad as everyone says.
That's the beauty of an interview. We really get to deep dive it. So I will, if anyone's listening and is a goalkeeper and wants to share their story, I would love to hear from them. Chris, thanks again for coming on. We'll have all your links and everything below. From my side, it was very enjoyable. So I really appreciate your time. And we'll speak soon.
Cheers, Chad.